Good morning, yogis. Today we're going to try to finish the second part of chapter 2. I did a video on the first part yesterday and did about 50 verses. It's a very long chapter and very heavy. The second part is going to be about our relationship to ourselves, and when we are able to remove ourselves, turn our senses inwards, we get a certain benefit. And so for the sage or the practitioner, ultimately, we're trying to get to a point where we can turn our senses inward. And in the yoga world, this is something called pratyahara, where you can turn all of your focus on the inside instead of on the outside. And there's another concept that we're going to discuss in here, which is called Ishvara Pranadhana, which is absolute devotion upon God, right? And so when we no longer desire possessions, when we no longer desire fame or fortune or power in the most earnest of ways, you get this spiritual benefit. And so it tells you that you can get to a state where you can't even incur sin because you're so motivated and consumed by the love of God that you can't sin. And so this is when you are become a realized being, and all sorts of things start to happen. Perform work in this world, Arjuna, as a man established within himself, without selfish attachments and alike in success and defeat. For yoga is perfect evenness of mind. Some of us, and this is the one that we finished on the last video, some of us have a lot more challenges than others. Like some of us have neurodivergence and things like that, PTSD. Like there's a lot of different triggers that can cause people to behave in ways that they would not normally behave, right? And I'm one of those people. Like I grew up kind of in a rough circumstance. My mom's been married 6 times and my dad's been married 7 times. And so when a male figure threatens me, I have these preconditioned responses. And so the rest of my life, I'm going to be battling this wiring, right? Well, if somebody tries to attack you, you do this. And so part of my dharma is that I have to address it and deal with it. And like, especially like, is it appropriate? And, my life is always about boundaries, which compartment am I in? And like, I don't really get to pick what happens to me for the most part, right? We can control who we hang out and things like that. But like yesterday, I almost got into a crazy collision because I decided to hang out with my mentor and the sun was out and we almost pulled out into the road. I mean, if she would not have hit the brakes, we would probably all both be dead right now yesterday. So, there's a randomness in life where we're going to get thrown all these curveballs that we didn't expect. And this is what is being communicated in this text, is that you need to be even in austerity and you need to be even in success. And this is what we're trying to do, is not be emotional. And so for those of us that tend to be really emotional, it can seem almost impossible at times. I'm one of those people, right? But I will tell you that things have gotten much, much, much better. Seek refuge in the attitude of detachment, and you will amass the wealth of spiritual awareness. The man who is motivated only by desire for the fruits of his actions and anxious about the anxious about the results, is a miserable person indeed. One more time. Seek refuge in the attitude of detachment, and you will amass the wealth of spiritual awareness. The man who is motivated only by desire for the fruits of his action and anxious about the results is miserable indeed. How many of us do things and then are anxious about what's going to happen, right? And if you remember previously, it says you have the right to work, but you do not have the right of the fruits of that work, which, we all think, oh, I did this work, I get this. No, give it to God. Give everything to God. The good, the bad, all of it. Give it to God. When consciousness is unified, all vain anxiety is left behind. There is no cause for worry, whether actions proceed well or ill. Therefore, devote yourself to the disciplines of yoga, for yoga is skill in action. So when it says the disciplines in yoga, I mean, it's a huge ocean, right? You have Kriya Yoga and Karma Yoga and, Jnana Yoga and Bhakti Yoga. And, you have Kriya, I already said that, but you have all kinds of different yogas, Ashtanga, and some of them have to do with your physical posture, some of them have to do with your mindset, yin. Um, all of them are different. And so, go explore and see where you fit, see what makes sense to you through your own experience. The wise, who have unified their consciousness and abandoned the attachment to the fruits of action, which binds a man to continual rebirth, attain a state beyond all evil. So again, when you abandon attachment to the fruits of action, you will attain a state beyond all evil. You will not be able to do anything that's evil. When your mind has overcome the confusion of duality, you will attain a state of holy indifference to things you hear and things you have heard. And I've mentioned this before. It says, realized being, when confronted with evil, is absolutely ambivalent to it, indifferent. They don't give it an ounce of any energy at all. It doesn't affect them whatsoever, which to me is like for sure a superpower. Like, how can you witness evil and be ambivalent to it? But that they're saying that's the goal, is to get to where you can see almost anything. And this one, it says you could be able to deal with almost any evil and not give it any energy. I'm not there yet. When you are unmoved by the confusion of ideas and your mind is completely united in love for the Lord of love, you will attain the state of perfect yoga, which, remember, it just said perfect yoga is equanimity of mind. That's what we're going for. Tell me of those who live always in wisdom. This is Arjuna speaking, even aware of the self, O Krishna. How do they talk? How do they sit? How do they move? How can I identify them? Like, what am I looking for? Krishna says, they live in wisdom, who see themselves in all and all in them, whose love for the Lord of love has consumed every selfish desire and sense craving, tormenting the heart. Not agitated by grief or hankering after pleasure, they live free from lust and fear and anger. So again, not agitated by grief or hankering after pleasure. Wow. And it seems like to me, there's a vacillation between those 2 points in life. That's the polarity, right? Grief, pleasure, grief, pleasure. And very, very rarely are we just content, right? We're always in some form of either exaggerated ecstasy or despair. And very, very regularly that we hit the mark and we're just cool, right? So we want to be free from lust, fear, and anger. Fettered no more by selfish attachments, they are not elated by good fortune or depressed by bad. Such are the seers. It says it over and over and over again. They're ambivalent to the results. Good day and a bad day look the same. No emotional response. Incredible. Even as a tortoise draws in its limbs, the wise can draw in their senses at will. So this is that pratyahara that I mentioned in the beginning. So this is going to be in the 8 limbs of yoga. Pratyahara is, I think, the 5th limb of yoga. And so this is what you're going to do before you go to dhyana, dhyana, and samadhi, right? So those are 3 states of consciousness. Prior to that is pratyahara, okay? And so that is just complete internalization of the senses. Though aspirants abstain from sense pleasures, they will still crave for them. These cravings all disappear when they see the Lord of God. And this is important. Though we abstain from sense pleasures, you will still crave for them. Enter Ishvara Pranadhanahana. It says if you want it, beat those cravings, give it to God. And anybody that's familiar with 12-step recovery, right? What do they tell you? Right? 2nd step, right? 3rd step. So for those of you that don't know, 2nd step is came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. 3rd step is made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of that, right? And so you give it all to God. And so the various different places are using this knowledge, and it works very well. For even of one who treads the path, the stormy senses can sweep off the mind. This happened to me yesterday, okay? For even one who treads the path, the stormy senses can sweep off the mind. And that's just one moment of not being able to get kind of knocked off your horse or letting your emotion get involved. And the next thing you know, you're not in control anymore. Or at least I should say, I'm not in control anymore, right? And just reliving an event that happened in the past can take me to the state. And so Now, go moving forward, I know like, maybe I shouldn't relive those things. Maybe I should take this moment and just be here instead of, going through all the drama of the past, right? There's enough drama today. I don't need to relive anything from yesterday. But they live in wisdom who subdue them and keep their minds ever absorbed in me. And so you are told to absorb them, right? Think about God and let it pass. When you keep thinking about sense objects, attachment comes. Attachment breeds desire, the lust of possession, which, when thwarted, burns to anger. Anger clouds the judgment. You can no longer learn from past mistakes. Lost is the power to choose between the wise and the unwise. And your life is an utter waste. They're very strong words. But when you move amidst the world of sense, free from both attachment and aversion, there comes the peace in which all sorrows end, and you live in the wisdom of the self. The disunited mind is far from wise. How can it meditate? How can it be at peace? When you know no peace, you don't know any joy. When you let your mind heed the siren call of the senses, they will carry away your better judgment as storms drive a boat off its safe charted course to certain doom. Use all your power to set the senses free from attachment and aversion alike, and live in the full wisdom of the self. Such a sage awakes to light in the night of all creatures. That which the world calls day is the night of ignorance to the wise. As the rivers flow into the ocean but cannot make the vast ocean overflow, so flow the magic streams of the sense world into the sea of peace that is the sage. They are forever free who break away from the ego cage of I, me, and mine to be united with the Lord of love. So it's saying here, you have to kill your ego. There's no more I, there's no more me, there's no more mine. In every video that I shoot, in most yoga classes I've ever been to, they end with something called namaste, right? You may hear it namaste, it's incorrect, namaste, irrelevant. But what does that mean? What does the word mean? And it means I absolutely recognize the divine spark within you. I recognize that you are God, that you have a little divinity spark within you. And just as water falls out of a cloud and has a moment of individuality, of separation, as it is a raindrop, the second that it hits another body of water, it becomes part of the whole and it is no longer independent. And so essentially, as I understand these texts, it's saying your goal is to find out that you are not separate from God and that you are a divinity spark and that you are essentially God. Now, people can say a lot of crazy things here, right? Like, oh my God, that's a heretical statement. And yeah, if you're Catholic, absolutely, to say you're God unless you're Jesus is a bold statement. But we're not necessarily saying you're God. Like, I don't think you can make a tree. I don't think that you're gonna, you know what I mean? And I would really like to see you try to make a tree. I think it'd be a lot of fun. But the point is that you have a piece of God in you. And because of that piece of God, I honor that within you. This is the supreme state. Attain to this and pass from death to immortality. Such ends chapter 2. The next chapter is on selfless service. And so there was a lot talked about here. We talked about duty. It talked about divorcing yourself from the ego. Talked about absolute devotion to God. And these particular things correlate with lots of other texts that I have read. I mean, if you read the Bible, God or Jesus says, I am God. I am the way. Fully believe in me, and you will have immortality. Right? Something to that effect. And I mean, it's the same kind of thing. The difference is, and we're going to go over this here shortly, Krishna explains every single emanation that you've ever heard of was God, right? Let me just ease this up for you, okay? Mithra was God. Vishnu was God. Narasimha was God. Jesus was God, okay? Like, yeah, they might have corrupted a text and said, oh, this is the only one true way or whatever, but the Bhagavad Gita absolutely says that is not the case and that there are many paths. And you don't need to get too worried about it. But what you do need to get worried about is the love of the divine. and addressing when you get things wrong. And it tells you, even if you're on the path, you're going to make mistakes. Even until you are a realized being, you're going to be able to witness and observe your flaws. It's kind of like when you clean a mirror. When you start, it probably has a bunch of gunk on it, right? And it's all like cloudy and nasty. And as you polish it, it gets super clean. But when you walk away, if you missed a little spot, where does your eye go? It doesn't go on all the parts of it that are perfect. You're constantly going to be tracking to wherever that mistake is or wherever that blemish is. And if you're anything like me, a little OCD, you're going to want to, go deal with that. And it's the same thing in your life. You could have a totally perfect mirror and there could be one little blemish, and our attention will get drawn to that and throw us off. As always, thank you so much for riding along with me on this journey. I'm having so much fun learning this, and I really missed being in the text. I took a break, and so it's just been really nice to have a reason to study. And so if nothing else, I have a reason to do this thing I love, and really, really enjoying it. Thank you so much for your practice, wherever you are. I hope you are well. Once again, namaste.